Good afternoon. Please be seated. Is the microphone on? Now it's on. That hadn't happened in 8 years. I'm glad. We're always looking for something new around here. That was good. Let me welcome you all here today. And before I acknowledge the members of Congress and our participants, I need to say just a few words about the terrible fire that has surrounded and engulfed part of Los Alamos, New Mexico. I have been briefed on the situation. The fire is continuing to blaze. The residents have been evacuated. We have taken steps to protect our lab and the assets there. And the most important, I just want to give my sympathies to the people who have lost their homes. Yesterday, I declared an emergency for the area, making them eligible for disaster assistance. And today, our FEMA Administrator, James Lee Witt, Secretary Richardson, our Forest Service Chief, Mike Dombeck, and the Director of the National Park Service, Bob Stanton, are all there, or will be shortly, to assess the situation and to monitor our efforts. This is a very, very difficult situation, and I know that the prayers and support of all Americans will be with the people out there. I'd like to welcome Senator Harkin, Senator Feinstein, Representative DeLauro, Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton, Representative Mink, Woolsey, Moore, Jackson, Lee, and Eddie Bernice Johnson, all of whom are here today, with Secretary Herman and Martin Bailey, the chair of our Council of Economic Advisors, Janice LaChance, our EEOC chair, Ida Castro, and all the other people who are here representing working families. And in just a few moments, I'll introduce the woman to my left who will speak after me, and is really what this day is all about. The first Mother's Day of the 21st century is shaping up to be a time of commitment and action led by women in America. On Sunday, mothers from around the nation will march for safer communities free of gun violence. Today, women and men are coming together to uphold core American values of equality, dignity, and justice. This has been designated Equal Pay Day. It marks the fact that the average woman had to work more than 4 months into this year just to earn what the average man earned last year. But equal pay is about more than dollars and cents. It's about right and wrong. Because it's wrong when women still earn about 75 cents for every dollar earned by a man in the same line of work. It's wrong that average female workers have to work an extra 17 weeks to catch up to the wages of average male workers. It's true, of course, that some of these differences can be explained by education, age, and occupation. But even after adjusting for these factors, there remains a sizable pay gap. As women go older, the gap grows wider. It is widest for women of color. African American women earn 64 cents for every dollar earned by white men. In other words, they'd have to work all of last year and into July of this year before they earned as much as the average white male earned in 1999. For Hispanic women, listen to this, Equal Pay Day won't come until late October. Equal pay is about all our mothers and sisters, our wives and daughters. It's about fathers and brothers and sons and husbands. It's a family issue. When women aren't paid equally, the entire family pays the price. We also know the cost extends far beyond one's work life. If you're making less, you'll get less Social Security. You'll have less to put aside for retirement. The average woman who's about to retire, if she even gets a pension, can expect about half the pension benefits of the average man who retires. Now is the time to close the wage gap. You have often heard me ask this question in the context of other national challenges. But if we have the lowest unemployment in over 30 years, and the longest economic expansion in history, and over 21 million new jobs, with the lowest poverty rate in 20 years and the lowest African American and Hispanic unemployment rates ever recorded, the lowest female unemployment rate in 40 years, and the lowest female household poverty rate on the record. If we can't solve this problem now, when in the world will we ever get around to it? Now is the time to deal with this. Wages for women are up, and the pay gap has narrowed since the passage of the Equal Pay Act. But the gap is still far, far too wide. And women and their families are paying a terrible price. Today I received a report from the Council of Economic Advisors on opportunities for women in the new economy, particularly in information technology fields, jobs such as computer scientists and programmers. Information technology now accounts for about a third of our growth, although only 8% of direct employment. But these are high-wage jobs that pay about 80% above the national average. The CEA study shows that overall employment in information technology has grown by more than 80% since 1993. Now, that's amazing. Overall employment has nearly doubled since 1983. But fewer than 1 of 3 of these high-tech, high-wage jobs are filled by women. Moreover, women are most underrepresented in new economy jobs where the pay is highest. For example, electrical engineering is just 10% female today. That is another digital divide. The report also found that after accounting for education and age and occupation, the pay gap in information technology jobs is unfortunately about the same as it is in other occupations. If we're going to make the most of the new economy, we have to close the door on discrimination wherever it exists and open the door for higher opportunities for all women who wish to work and are qualified to do so. Today I'm announcing a number of steps to do just that. First, our budget for the coming year includes a new $20 million initiative for the National Science Foundation for grants to universities to remove barriers to career advancement for women scientists and engineers and encourage more women to pursue these fields. This is especially important because we know the pay gap narrows sharply for women who have higher levels of education. When only 1 out of 10 engineers is a woman and only 30% of those in math and computer science jobs are women, we simply have to do more. It's important for reasons of fairness and justice. It's also important for our leadership in the global economy. Second, I'm establishing an equal pay task force at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to ensure that our EEOC field staff have the full range of support they need to effectively investigate charges of pay discrimination.
Yes.
Third, and perhaps most important, again today I renew my call to Congress to send the clear message that wage discrimination against women is just as unacceptable as discrimination based on race or ethnicity. The best way to do that is by acting this year. Support legislation to strengthen existing wage discrimination laws. Support our Equal Pay Initiative in next year's budget to provide $10 million for EEOC efforts to help end wage discrimination, and $17 million for Secretary Herman's efforts to train women in non-traditional jobs, including those in high-tech fields.
Yeah.
35 years ago, when President Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act, now more than 35 years ago, he said, I quote, "It adds to our laws another structure basic to democracy." For over 7 years now, the Vice President and I have tried to build on that basic idea, to include more women in every aspect of our administration's life, and to create more opportunities for all Americans, women and men equally. We have not succeeded in closing the pay gap. We need the help of Congress to do it. It is very, very important. We all say we want to support work and family. We all say we want to open new doors of opportunity. Now's our chance, and we ought to take it. I'd like to introduce now someone who knows about the equal pay challenge because she has lived with wage discrimination. She has fought against wage discrimination, and thankfully, she has won. She came here from Baltimore today to tell her story. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Simmons Bethea.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Simmons Bethea, and I am here today not as a victim, but as a victor and a grateful beneficiary of the hard work and dedication of people who believe that discrimination, especially in the workplace, is wrong, and that equality and fairness is worth fighting for. In 1993, I accepted the position of Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for a public access television corporation in Baltimore, Maryland. I was the first person hired by the organization. It existed only as a grassroots advocacy group prior to my coming on board. The operational success of the organization was directly related to my professional experience of over 15 years at the time in radio, broadcast television, and cable television management. I considered it a privilege to bring public access television to life in Baltimore, which is my hometown. Over 600 people from the community received training in how to produce their own television shows with then state-of-the-art video production equipment. There were 2 public access channels on television 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with new programs being produced and distributed almost daily. I was responsible for technical system design, staff supervision, community outreach, public relations, fundraising, and working with the board of directors of the organization. In actuality, it was no different than running a regular television station. I took great pride in my work and that I was one of only a handful of African American women in such a position. I had no idea of the devastation that was to come. The majority of the board of directors was male. I initially did not perceive that as a problem. However, it became evident that no matter how hard I worked to benefit the organization, I was still considered just a woman to many of them. During my tenure, I went through 2 difficult but successful pregnancies. But the board told me that I would have to use my sick leave and my vacation to cover my illnesses. I said to myself that I'll be the first woman to have an illness that cries. I'm proud to say that my husband Robert and I have added 2 beautiful, healthy, vibrant children, not illnesses, to our family. Now the situation became increasingly difficult. One of the female board members took the liberty in conversation of discussing her own experience with not being paid the same as a man for the same job. She agreed that had I been a man in the position I held, they would have, quote, had to pay me more money. After repeatedly asking for and being denied long overdue salary increases and adequate staffing, the board asked me to present justification for my requests. In October 1996, I presented a study to the board of directors that pointed out the tremendous disparity between my salary and the salaries of my predominantly male counterparts in other markets, which have public access television operations. Of course, their salaries were much higher than mine, even though their operations were often much smaller. Less than 1 month after presenting the information to the board, I was terminated. And within a week, I was replaced with a male who had less experience, but had a 20% higher salary. The termination was difficult enough. I had spent nearly 4 years of my life starting and growing that organization, often at great sacrifice of time with my family and under tremendously stressful conditions. The fact that they had hired a male and willingly gave him a higher salary was unbelievable and unacceptable to me. The stress caused by this situation and the distasteful circumstances surrounding it took a tremendous toll on me emotionally, mentally, and physically. I felt like I had experienced a death of sorts, so I grieved the loss and I called the EEOC. It was not an easy decision for me to make. It took much prayer and encouragement from my husband, my children, my family, and my former colleagues to get back to the point that I would allow myself to talk about what happened, much less file a formal complaint. Even after beginning the process, I experienced a tremendous amount of anxiety and self-doubt. But my faith is great in God and in those who He puts in my path to help me when I need it. Deborah Lawrence of the EEOC is one of those people. Ms. Lawrence and those who worked with her at EEOC during this process exemplified the utmost professionalism and tenacity in resolving this matter, and they were successful in settling the case with my former employer. I am grateful that the EEOC is there to assist people like me who have gone through so very much in the workplace. It is never easy to confront difficult situations, but I hope that I can serve as an example to women across the country who work hard to build their professional careers, but still do not receive the salaries equal to their male counterparts. I would like to thank you, Mr. President, for your support, your leadership, and your commitment on this issue, and for the opportunity to share my story today. It is now my pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro.
Great.
Thank you so much, Karen. You really are an inspiration, and we're so grateful that you share your story with all of us today. It is one more illustration of the problem that's been described in the Council of Economic Advisors report on equal pay that the President spoke about. Even when talented women like yourself break into the high-tech field, they face unfairness of the wage gap, and it shows why the President's Equal Pay Initiative is so critically important to all of us. Mr. President, we say thank you to you for staying so steadfast in the support of equal pay and for endorsing the legislation that myself and others here have introduced. We are very grateful for that. These are some of the most important initiatives that we can undertake on behalf of America's working women and on behalf of strengthening America's working families. My gratitude to Secretary Herman for her vigilance on this issue, and to my colleagues, Senator Feinstein, Senator Harkin, Congressman Norton, for their leadership on this issue and their legislation, and my other colleagues who are with us today. I always emphasize families when talking about the wage gap because it is such an important distinction. Wage equity is not just a woman's issue. It is ensuring equal pay for equal work is about improving the lives of our families, because the wage gap doesn't just shortchange women. When women are paid about 75 cents on the dollar, it hurts children and families, because many working women are the primary breadwinners in their households. And by undervaluing women's work, the pay gap robs millions of families of an average of $4,000 each and every year. To the women in these families, a career isn't a choice. A second paycheck for these families isn't a luxury. It is a necessity. Nearly 2/3 of working women provide half or more of their household income, and 41% are the sole source of income. And a full quarter of working women are laboring on nights and during the weekends just to make ends meet. For these working families, one full paycheck and one 3/4 paycheck just doesn't cut it. The wage gap is now at the lowest point ever, and that's progress. But it isn't enough. It is time for this nation to say that we do value the work that women do in our society, that we value the contributions that women are making, and we will make that commitment to pay women what they are worth. And it is because of the persistent undervaluing of women's work that it is so important to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and other pieces of legislation that are geared toward equal pay for equal work. What we're trying to do in the Paycheck Fairness Act is to put teeth into current law, help us to better enforce the Equal Pay Act. And for the first time, in fact, it will put wage discrimination on the basis of gender on the same footing as wage discrimination on the basis of race or ethnicity. The President and the Democrats in the Congress are committed to pass this legislation and to putting an end to the wage gap. Today, women across America are holding more than 800 Equal Pay Day events to raise the awareness of this problem and to call on the Congress to act. Their values, America's values, demand that we value America's working women. And I just say to you on this Equal Pay Day, let us rededicate ourselves to those values. Let us tell all working women that they count and that, in fact, we are going to close that pay gap once and for all. Thank you. Thank you. It is a great honor for me to introduce you to you, the Senator from California, Dianne Feinstein. Senator Feinstein.
Thank you. Mr. President, Secretary Herman, my colleagues in government, and ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, let me just begin, because I didn't have a chance to do this in your office, to thank you for the executive order on the African trade bill. That bill has now passed the Senate, and I, for one, am very grateful for what you've done. Thank you very much. I began to look for my first real job about 40 years ago. I had a college degree from a good college. I had a fellowship, did a year's graduate work, and yet the signs were out, and those signs were women need not apply. And it was pretty much commonplace that a woman would get a job when she did at a pay that was about a third less than a man, about 63 cents to the dollar, to be honest with you. And as I applied for jobs, I saw that men would very often get the job and not the woman. And life went on, and then in the 1970s, I was president of the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco, and the whole question of comparable pay for comparable work really surfaced throughout the civil service systems of this great nation. And then, while mayor of San Francisco in the 1980s, the issue even became more important, and there were different versions of what it was, and women were increasing in the workforce. And I've reflected on those days, and much has been said about shattering the glass ceiling. In fact, we have chipped that ceiling pretty well. But the ceiling is really still intact. The one major thing that can really be done to shatter the glass ceiling that exists in the American workplace is paycheck fairness. It works on the entry level, and it works in terms of elevating women into the executive and boardroom levels and corporate leadership levels of this great country. Paycheck fairness, equal pay for equal work. Congresswoman DeLauro and the President, I think, have adequately pointed out how many women work in the workforce today, how many are heads of families, and of course, they work because they have to, because it's a very different cost of living workforce today. What also has to be said, I think, is what happens when women retire, and whether women have pensions. And that pension, obviously, pay goes in to the computation of a pension. Consequently, if you don't get equal pay for equal work, you're not going to get a pension that reflects equal pay for equal work. Today, currently less than 1/3 of female retirees receive a pension, while over half of retired men receive a pension. The average woman retiring today, if she receives a pension, will receive only 1/2 the pension benefits of the average man. Now, this lack of pension benefits for most women, combined with a lifetime of lower wages, results in a poverty rate for elderly women that is twice the poverty rate for people over the age of 65. So, my point is, not only is paycheck fairness important to all of our young women entering the workforce, but it guarantees a quality of life on retirement as well. So it is a big, mega issue in terms of workplace issues. I want to thank our leader, Tom Daschle, for authoring this bill in the Senate. my colleague Senator Harkin for his support of this. And I hope those of you who watch these issues really realize what a breadwinner issue this is. Now 3 out of 5 American families have women in the workplace, and women are the total source of support in 1 out of 5 of those families. How women retire, how they're able to live throughout the rest of their life really rests with paycheck fairness. And one day, we will smash that glass ceiling. Thanks, Mr. President. Oh, and now, I keep telling her she should run for mayor of D.C., but she believes she best serves in the Congress. And see, is that not right? Yes. But she's been a wonderful representative of this district, and I've watched her closely in the 8 years I've been back here. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Yes. Thank you so much, I guess, Senator Feinstein. A great senator from California, the great senator who led the way so that we now have from California 2 great women senators. Mr. President, Senator Harkin, Representative DeLauro, my good colleagues from the House, Secretary Herman, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, Mr. President, for using the highest office in the land to press for equal wages for the lowest paid workers in the country, America's women. Thank you for giving priority all 8 years of your administration to the stubborn inequality in women's wages that depresses family income. Thanks to the historic 1963 Equal Pay Act, it was my great privilege to administer. And thanks as well to their own common sense and sense of fairness, most large employers today do not pay women and men different wages for doing the very same work. However, yesterday, I stood with the women custodians of the United States Capitol, who for 3 years have had one of the rare, major class action EPA cases in our courts today. It alleges that the women who clean the offices of the members of the House and the Senate are paid $1 less than the men who do similar work. The defendant is the architect of the Capitol, AKA the Congress of the United States.
Hear, hear.
The pay problem of most women today stems from stark sex segregation in the jobs that women and men do. 2/3 of white women and 3/4 of African American women work in just 3 areas of employment: sales and clerical, service, and factory jobs. Only a wide variety, a varied combination of more aggressive strategies can break through the ancient societal habits present throughout human time and the world over, and the employer steering that is as old as paid employment itself. Women themselves deserve an A for self-help. Women are bringing most of the change to equal pay in revolutionary breakthroughs in education, as they now receive, for example, more college degrees than men, and in their wholesale infiltration of the traditional male occupations, such as law and medicine and business and all the rest. The nation's message, of course, must not be that women should abandon the indispensable occupations such as teaching and nursing in order to earn an equal living. Both of these occupations are being wholesalely abandoned by women. We need to integrate those occupations with men. But men have more sense than to enter occupations that pay as little as teaching and nursing does, and women are getting more sense, and society is being left in the lurch. Senator Tom Harkin and I have introduced the Fair Pay Act to help eliminate only that portion of the wage gap that can be proven to be due to discrimination, carefully drawn so that there is no interference with the free market. Our bill may not be the answer. Then we must quickly find another answer. I want to salute the states, the unions, and the private employers that are ahead of all the rest of us in indeed finding answers. I want to salute the 20 states that have adjusted wages for women, raising pay for teachers, nurses, clerical workers, librarians, and the female-dominated jobs of their workforce that were paid less than men with the same skill, effort, responsibility, working conditions as men. To mention only two, thank you, New York, for implementing a comprehensive pay equity plan for state workers. Thank you, Minnesota, for moving a pay equity plan when you found that similarly skilled female jobs paid 20% less than male jobs. Women thank almost half the state governments, Democratic and Republican-led, that are demonstrating that you can eliminate that part of the pay gap that is due to discrimination. And there will often be some of that gap that, of course, is not due to discrimination. But these states have taken on their obligation to eliminate the discrimination gap. These 20 states are showing that you can tackle the discrimination gap without interfering with the free market system. They close the discrimination gap, usually over a period of 4 or 5 years, and at a cost of no more than 3 to 4% of payroll. Thank you, AF-CIO. For hundreds of collective bargaining agreements that bring pay equity to women. To cite one notable example, thank you for seeing to it that the women who sew shoes are paid the same as the men who cut the shoes, although these are not the very same jobs. Thank you, AF-CIO, for seeing to it that women today, simply by joining a union, earn $160 a week more than women who do not join unions. Thank you. Our thanks as well to the countless nameless employers who on their own see the extraordinary economy that the President has spoken of, see the shortage of workers, and see the unfairness, and are raising wages with pay equity adjustments because it makes good sense for every business in the country to do so. Pay has been built into the way women have been treated since Adam and Eve. It is a powerful and pervasive force in the world. In our country, only 2 of the 90 major occupations pay equally, from the downtown offices to Hollywood, where Meryl Streep shared top billing with Jack Nicholson and was paid millions of dollars less. It is going to take more than women's extraordinary self-help efforts and the work underway in half the states and by unions and by employers. Somehow, the federal government is going to have to find a way to weigh in a way that will meet face to face the large enemy that we confront and help women and their families earn what they are worth. We have got a lion by the tail. And the unequal pay line needs more than rhetoric to move us toward remedy. To tame this lion, we need the leadership we have gotten from this president, and we need to get us a Congress that will help us get the rest of the job done. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce a great fighter for women's pay, a man who has proven passionately that you do not have to be a woman to take the leadership in pressing for fair pay for the women.
Not only for your strong support of all working families, but in especially your strong support and advocacy on this issue. I want to thank my colleagues for their energetic advocacy also for the issue of pay fairness. Let me also thank the business and professional women of America who have done so much on this issue, the National Committee on Pay Equity, and the AFL-CIO for their great leadership on this issue. In 1963, Congress passed the Equal Pay Act. It was indeed an historic day, and we do need to do a better job by enforcing and strengthening the penalties under that law. That's why I'm a co-sponsor of the Paycheck Fairness Act, sponsored by Senator Daschle and Congresswoman DeLaura in the House. But as the previous speaker, Congresswoman Holmes Norton, said, there is another part of this discrimination against women in the workplace. It is the historic pattern of undervaluing and underpaying so-called women's work. For example, a study in Los Angeles showed that social workers, mostly women, were paid $20,000 a year less than probation officers, mostly men. I can give you another example with some hypothetical people. Sally Phillips of Terre Haute, Indiana, works as a middle school office manager. Her colleague, Mike Smith, is the school's landscape supervisor. Both jobs require similar levels of skill and effort, responsibility, and working conditions. But Sally has just found out that she makes $4 an hour less than Mike. Millions of women today are working in female-dominated jobs as secretaries, social workers, teachers, child care workers, and nurses. They are equivalent in their skill, their effort, their responsibility, and working conditions to similar jobs dominated by men. The problem is these women aren't paid the same as men, and that's where the bulk of the pay discrimination against women comes in. That's what the Fair Pay Act that Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton and I have sponsored would address. Unfairly low pay in jobs dominated by women is un-American. It's discriminatory, and it should be illegal. Now, this is not a radical idea. As Congresswoman Holmes Norton said, 20 states have fair pay laws and policies in place for their public employees. My state of Iowa passed a pay equity bill for state employees with a Republican governor and a Republican legislature in the mid-1980s. And guess what? The sky did not fall. In fact, today, Iowa is a stronger and a better state, and we have better services from our state employees than we ever had before. Now, some say we don't need more laws, that market forces will take care of the wage gap. Well, if we had relied on market forces, we never would have passed the Civil Rights Act. We never would have passed, Mr. President, the Family and Medical Leave Act that you championed. And we never would have passed the Americans with Disabilities Act. National polls show that pay equity is the #1 issue for working women and their families. So let's finally close the door on pay discrimination. Democrats have tackled these problems head-on. We've introduced bills in both the House and the Senate. The President and the Vice President are providing strong leadership on this issue. Today, we call upon the Republican leadership to drop their opposition. On this day and Mother's Day weekend, join us in our effort to make sure that women get paid what they are worth. Now, my honor to introduce a great friend, a great champion of all working people, but a great champion for ending pay discrimination against women, our Secretary of Labor, Alexis Herman.
Thank you very much, Senator Harkin, and our thanks again to all of the members of Congress who are here today, but especially our thanks for being on the front lines every day on behalf of American workers, but especially for your work to close the pay gap for working women and for working families. Mr. President, you are absolutely right. This is about more than equal pay. It is about what is fundamentally right and what is fundamentally wrong. We should use this day to recommit ourselves to the specific proposals that you have laid out. We again urge Congress to act and to act today, because time is running out, my friends, not just for the women and for the families in our country today, but really for generations yet unborn. We must do the work that is still needed in this country to reward work, to reward families, to open even wider the doors of opportunity, and to finally close the door on the pay gap in this country. Mr. President, I thank you for your extraordinary leadership on this issue, and again, welcome back to the podium.
I just wanted to say one final thing. Some of the members have alluded to it, but because of the way we introduced each other seriatim, I don't think we adequately expressed our appreciation to Karen Simmons Bethea, who really represents what this is all about. And I think we ought to give her another hand. And I would just leave you with this thought. There are a few issues that we're working on today that unfortunately tend to get cast in Washington, D.C. in terms of a partisan divide. But out in the country, there isn't one. You know, when I was a young boy, I lived with a working grandfather and a working grandmother. I was raised by a working mother. Nobody has lived in one of these families for any period of time without having at least one encounter with some kind of problem that we're talking about. And if it ever happens to you, especially when you're a child, you never get over it. If you go out and talk to Americans around this country, Republicans and independents and Democrats will all tell you more or less the same thing about this issue. This is not a political or a partisan issue anywhere else. Now, you heard Eleanor Holmes Norton say if somebody doesn't like our bills or they want to talk about the practical impact, well, we can talk about how to word the language and deal with the practical consequences. But whether we do something or not, and whether what we do is meaningful or not, is not a political or a partisan issue in America, and it shouldn't be here. And if all the people who have ever experienced anything like what Karen talked about today would talk to all the members of Congress about it, we would get something done, something meaningful this year. Thank you, and God bless you all. What she's going to say, what is she going to
I want the President to meet you.
You need to tell him, I'm going to go call and tell him I think this is not the organization.
This is Robert.
Your husband, aren't you proud of her? Is she great or what? Come here, let's take a picture.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Tell you what, I'm proud of you for supporting her. I'm proud of you for coming in. You've got to make this a family issue. My mom was a nurse and she wasn't a doctor. And the 1 year she was working on this she charged us and she go back to the doctor. She thought that was okay. She went back to Scott from there and I was home, so we went back home. Tell us what the rest of the she's like, and he proceeded. Somebody couldn't afford to pay her. That's like before Medicare and Medicaid, you know, the fruit pickers would bring her a bushel of apples, you know. It wasn't about money. This guy thought because he was he could actually break it. And, you know, and women in her generation, they didn't have anything. She didn't have anything like the articulation. She didn't know from nothing from who she was talking. And I watched this thing. My mother, who was good natured, strong, it didn't break it, but it was and everybody who's there long enough for the family to
I know she was giving me one of those sort of things. I'm like, how are you? I'm Mr. Ross. Hi, nice to meet you. It's two of those here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know I look dramatically. What did you think about that? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, how are you?
President's still here, guys. Get over there and still be here.
Oh, Northwest Gate. Yeah, Northwest Gate is the rest of
I guess it's all gone. It's not much on the thing. It's all gone.
No, I had a lunch yesterday.
Well, you can switch over to wireless. I can run over there. Huh? A little late. Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Oh, good. Thank you. That was so cool.
I've always had a